Hey guys, it's Spees, back here with another video on World of Warcraft. And sorry I haven't made a video in a while. In the times I've been making the video, I got married, a lot of stuff's happening. Yay me. Okay, back to World of Warcraft now. They have added a new spec to the new class of World of Warcraft, and it's not even a major content patch. This is a minor patch in the middle of a season, and they're like, hey look, a new spec. And not only that, it's a type of damage dealer that's never happened in World of Warcraft before. And you're probably asking, Speeds, how can this damage dealer be different than other damage dealers? They all just deal damage, right? Well, this one is all about buffing your allies. It's kind of like a barb class that buffs everyone else. You yourself aren't going to do a lot of damage because you're going to supercharge your allies with buffs called Augmentation for the Evoker class. Before we go into it, I just want to go over their mastery that says it has two effects. The first effect says when you cast an empower spell, which you have two, it says it empowers one ally, preferably a damage dealer, with shifting sands that says increase their versatility by, for me, 16%. But the second part of the effect is the more important part. It basically says it increases the duration of your helpful buffs by X amount. That goes up the more mastery you have. So with my mastery, it says 20.2% longer buffs. So you want all the mastery for this class to extend your buffs. So how does the class work? So first off, we're going to talk about this ability called Prescience. Prescience. It's hard to pronounce. It has a 12-second cooldown. And it says, grants an allies with the gift of foresight, increasing their critical strike by 3% and occasionally copying their damage and healing at 50% of their power for 21.6 seconds. So basically, you want to hit this every 12 seconds on cooldown. Every 12 seconds. This is the most important thing about this class. And for me, with my mastery, it lasts 21.5 seconds, which is almost enough to have it rolling when I cast it a second time. So basically, you can always have two of these rolling almost at all times. And the more mastery you have, you might get to that mythical point that you can have two of them rolling at all times. But this is the most important thing about this spec. Now, you can choose who it goes on to by, physically targeting them or mousing over their unit frames and casting it on them. But to make it easy, if you have an enemy enemy targeted, and you press it, it's just going to jump to the closest damage dealer near the enemy and give it to them. And then it's smart enough to, when you press it the second time, it won't jump on someone who already has the buff. So the first time you saw it buff this person, now it buffs this person. So if you're lazy, or if you're just in a 5-man when you only have 2 DPS, you can just press it on the enemy on cooldown and it will cycle through your 2 DPS. In a raid, you want to choose the best 2 DPS to put it on at all times. Maybe you want to make a macro for DPS A, and then a macro for DPS B, and then press the one button for A, press the other button for B, or just target them in the unit frames. So that's step 1 of the spec, and the big buff you get up. Press this every 12 seconds. Very important for the class. Now the other thing, your normal rotation is starting with this buff called Ebb and Might. 1.3 second cast, 30 second cooldown. Increase your 4 nearest allies' primary stat by 15% of your own primary stat, and causes you yourself to deal 14% more damage for 12 seconds. Of course, this buff could get extended by your mastery. This says can only affect 4 allies at once, and prefers to imbue damage dealers. You don't get to choose which 4 this jumps to, but one thing this doesn't explain is this Ebb and Might will always jump to people who have the Prescience buff. So then it even supercharges them more. So before you go into a pool, you all want to make sure you have two two of these buffs out before you press the ebb and might. So if you're staring at a raid boss and you know you're gonna pull in about 15 seconds, you want to have two buffs rolling, and right when you pull, you go right into ebb and might. And then ebb and might also says that other spells you cast, like Eruption, Breath of Eons, and your power spells, also extend the duration of ebb and might. So basically the whole idea of this class is you have prescience rolling on two people, then you press ebb and might, supercharges the two prescience people and two other damage dealers, and then you just start doing your rotation, which will then extend the ebb and might buff to supercharge those four other people. And that's really the whole spec. Now, I'm just going to go through and talk about your power spells. You have is Fire Breath, and it also extends your active ebb and might by 2 seconds. Upheaval extends it by 2 seconds. Eruptions, the other spell, this is your essence spender. Costs 2 essence. You have 6. Essence just recharges normally over time. So right after you cast ebb and might, you go into Fire Breath, you go into Upheaval, and then you spend Eruption to just keep extending the buff. The other spell that it said extends it is called Breath of Eons, which has a 2-minute cooldown. So this is the one that when you click it, you're going to choose an area and then you're going to fly through it, deal a whole bunch of damage to those enemies. But if you also read this, it says it leaves temporal wounds on those enemies for 12 seconds. What does temporal wounds do? It says it accumulates 21% of the damage dealt by your allies inflicted by ebb and might, and then once 12 seconds up, that damage that has been accumulating on them crits. So not only, basically just this, if you just read into it, it just basically says increase the damage of the 4 people with ebb and might by 21%, like 21% of the damage dealt, and then crits on top of that. So it even supercharges the people with ebb and might when you Breath of Eons them. So even supercharges them more. So you go ebb and might, your power spells, Breath of Eons if it's off cooldown, and then you just go into all your eruptions. Then once you're out of essence, you either Living Flame or Azora Strike in the meantime until either they proc Essence Burst, which makes your next Essence spending spell free, or then you just charge up all your Essence again. So I'm just going to go into the cooldown really quick, into the rotation really quick. Right here above my weak auras where I have my Essence, these 6 little ticks are my Essence, you'll see a bar that counts down my ebb and might buff. I did not make this weak aura. I took it from other people that are way better than me. I believe his name is Preheat. You can just search Preheat Evoker on YouTube. You find him. If you want to learn more about this class, this spec, he's the man to go to. He will give you how to min-max it. But here we go. So make sure, like I said, you want Precipice, Parmesium rolling on people before you really go into the rotation. So I got one rolling, I hit my second one, now I go ebb and might, right into Fire Breath, right into Upheaval, right into my Breath of Eons, and then I'm just erupturing. Oh, Prescience came off cooldown. Prescience can also have a chance to proc Essence Burst. Oh, I'm out of oh, here we go. I'm hitting the wrong buttons. I can't talk and play at the same time. Alright, so my buff finally fell off. Once your buff falls off and you're waiting for ebb and might to come off, just Living Flames if it's single target, or Azora Strike if it's a multi-target to build up essences. Let your essence recharge, and then once your ebb and might is off cooldown, which Fire Breath has the same 30-second cooldown, so it should be right behind it. Hit Ebb and Might again, right into Fire Breath, right into Upheaval, and then back into Eruptions. And that's really, and the whole time, make sure to keep your Precipice, Prescience, Parmesium buff going. Which I have not been keeping the Prescience buff rolling. But that's basically the rotation of the class. Other things, other spells you got to remember about. They have a spell here called, where is it? Blistering Scales. This is what you want to put on your tank. It says protect an ally with 15 explosive dragon scales, increasing their armor by 30% of your own. And then every time they get hit, it explodes, takes a scale away, and explodes for some damage. You can only have one of these placed at a time with a 30-second cooldown. You want to cast it on your tank. But to make it easy again, if you're targeting the enemy and you cast this, it will automatically cast on the target of the enemy, which should be your tank. So, just remember to hit this every 30 seconds. Oh, that's not the right button. And here you go. I have it on myself. And it just buffs your tank, gives them a little bit of survivability. Other things you have, your main personal, every damage dealer has a personal cooldown. Yours is called Time Skip. And it says surge forward in time, causing your cooldowns to recover 1,000% faster for 2 seconds. So when you do your big, huge opener, you have Prescience rolling on 2 people. Then you go into Ebb and Might, Fire Breath, Upheaval, and then to Breath of Eons. Then you just want to follow it up with Time Skip, which is a channeled ability. And then they'll all get off cooldown quicker. So then you can roll into them and probably have Ebb and Might rolling the whole 30 seconds into the next Ebb and Might. What sucks about this is on a 3-minute cooldown. Breath of Eons is on a 2-minute cooldown. So they don't really line up. You don't want to hold Breath of Eons. You don't want to hold any of the other things. You always want to hit Fire Breath right after you cast Ebb and Might. You always want to press Upheaval, which has a 40-second cooldown. But it is, I think there's a talent that lowers it when you cast Eruption. So it has about a 32-second cooldown. It will start floating away from your Fire Breath, but you always want to hit Upheaval inside of Ebb and Might. So that's the whole class. Ebb and Might, Fire Breath, Upheaval, Breath of Eons, inside of Ebb and Might, Upheaval or Eruption to then keep that Ebb and Might buff rolling. Remember to hit Prescience. Remember to hit Blistering Scales on cooldown. And that's the whole spec. You also have 2 attunements called Black and Bronze. The Black says when you just sit in it, you just click them and you switch between them. You can do it once every 3 seconds. The Black one says you and your 4 nearest allies have 4% increased maximum health. Hey, that's awesome. That's just almost as good as the Priest Fortified buff, which gives 5% to everyone. You can only do 5 people, but if you're in a 5-man group and have a Priest with you, I don't know if it just adds up to 9%, if there's just some weird multiplicity going on, but hey, more spam to everyone. The other one just says you and your 4 nearest allies run 10% faster. You're probably just going to sit in Black the whole time. So the pros and cons of this class. Well, the pro is your buffs are amazing. You're really going to supercharge the other 2 people that you have Prescience rolling on. If you're in a raid, your Ebb and Might will also supercharge 2 other DPS. If you're in a 5-man group, your Ebb and Might will just jump on the healer and tank and supercharge them up a little bit. A lot of primary stat. Your buffs are amazing. All the utility you bring is pretty amazing. So what are the cons of the class? First one is, well, if you're doing a 5-man group and there's only 2 other DPS and one of the other DPS dies, well, you have no one to buff now. You don't have another damage to buff. So not only, normally if one DPS dies, maybe you can carry through the boss fight or whatever with the 2 other ones. But if you have an Augmentation Evoker and one of the other DPS dies, it's almost like 1.5 DPS went down. it's bad. Your personal damage is not that much. You are supercharging the other people. So if one of those other people go down and you don't have people to buff, well, it's bad. The other con of the class is, well, you yourself don't do much damage. You can't do solo content because you're all about buffing other people. So you can't solo anything at all. Also, your damage, if you look at damage meters, you yourself are probably going to do as much damage as the tank. Maybe even a little bit lower. So other people in the group will be like, dude, step it up. You're not doing as much damage as the tank. Well, they don't understand that you're supercharging the two other people. Also, at the same time, your performance is based on how good the other people you're buffing is. If you're not buffing good people, if you're doing a pug and one of those DPS in the 5-man group sucks, well, then you are going to suck by extension because you're buffing someone that's not good. So you're amazing in a pre-made group that, if you know, everyone in the group is good and you're buffing good people. But in a pug or with people that aren't that good, your performance is based on how good the people you're buffing. But this is amazing. It's something new World of Warcraft is doing. Adding a spec in the middle of an expansion that's a brand new spec. This is new. This is a spec all about buffing people. This is new territory for World of Warcraft, and I applaud Blizzard for doing it. I thank everyone for watching this video, and see you next time.